The official portrait of former U.S. Senator George Mitchell was removed from the walls of the Maine State House in Augusta today. The Maine House GOP shared video showing the portrait being removed this afternoon. This comes 3 weeks after Mitchell resigned from his role as honorary chair of the Mitchell Institute, following renewed attention on Mitchell after recently unsealed court documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein sex abuse case. The Maine Senate President's office said the Epstein files were a factor in the decision to remove that portrait. The official portrait of Mitchell was unveiled in 2014 in the Hall of Flags. We're told a portrait of Gail Laughlin, the first female in Maine to practice law, will take Mitchell's place on